Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda, and please welcome to our Operation Freedom platform, WeThePeopleProcessing.com. You know, are you tired of being threatened to be canceled just because you have a company focused on liberty and freedom? Well, worry no more, folks. WeThePeopleProcessing.com is your go-to merchant services, freedom-based company to provide business service payment solutions. We the People Processing provides their clients a cancel culture-free platform which is domestically based. They provide competitive rates, no contracts with next-day funding, a fully vetted and like-minded financial infrastructure, and full support for integrations, implementation, and e-commerce efforts. Bottom line, WeThePeopleProcessing.com focuses on defending your company's free market growth, values, and future. Check them out at www.WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Once you're on the site, enter in password Operation Freedom or call 855-499-2024. That's WeThePeopleProcessing.com. Then, when on the website, enter Operation Freedom as your password or call 855-499-2024.
Welcome back to Operation Freedom, folks. I'm Dr. Dave Janda, broadcasting from our ancillary bunker, actually our Southern Command, linked to our main freedom bunker, the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, here every Sunday for you live from 2 to 5 Eastern, also available 24/7. at davejanda.com. Stop on by. Tremendous amount of free public information, obviously, as well as the subscription content, 30 cents a day, biggest bang for the buck in all the internet, with extra shows, extra content, extra guests, extra analysis, archives to all of our shows. Many people ask how they can support our platform. There you go. And it get priceless information on a almost a daily basis that you'll never get in the bought-off lamestream fake media. Will put you far ahead of the curve, months, years ahead of the curve that the globalists have constructed to try to strip you of your freedoms and your liberties and your future and our constitutional republic. It's one way to support us, is becoming a member of our subscription content feed. The theme of today's show is bringing forward people who have incredible analytical skills and ability to talk about a multitude of issues, including the election, which 5 days into it is still ongoing, and get their assessment. My next guest is a very unique individual, Commander Scott Snow. To be a fighter pilot, and he flew F-14, 16s, and 18s. He had 3,200 fighter hours, 2,025 hours in an F-14 alone, 618 landings on aircraft carriers, 335 combat hours. You know, to be a great fighter pilot, there are many attributes. One of which is you have to have great situational awareness. But the other is an important aspect is you have to have incredible analytical skills. Because let's face it, if you're in combat and someone is firing ordnance at you, if you don't have the appropriate analytical skills, you will become what Scott has described as, quote, pink mist, end quote, very quickly. And the fact that Scott is alive and well with us today and not pink mist is a testament to his analytical skills. He graduated from the University of Washington, and then he attended maintenance officer school in Pensacola, Florida, and flight school in Corpus Christi, Texas. Following advanced jet training in Kingsville, Texas, he received his pilot wings and reported to Fighter Squadron 101 Detachment Miramar for training in the F-14D. He then reported to Fighter Squadron 2 as an F-14D fleet pilot, and while assigned to VF-2, he completed an Arabian Gulf cruise aboard the USS Constellation. His next assignment, he reported to a landing school officer school as an instructor And while assigned to LSO school, he instructed in all phases and the F-14 A, B, and D models. His next assignment, he reported to a Carrier Air Wing 1 as head landing signal officer and carrier qualified day and night in both the F-14B and F-A-18C. He was then deployed on board the USS Theodore Roosevelt, and he led numerous combat missions in Operation Enduring Freedom in both aircraft. After returning from that cruise, Lieutenant Commander Snow embarked on the USS Abraham Lincoln in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. He flew extensively in combat operations and Operation Iraqi Freedom as well. He was selected as Fighter Pilot of the Year at that point, and he then ran carrier schedules and helped produce the Pacific Air Study and provided numerous tactical operator inputs to shape strategic guidance in the Pacific theater. He then reported to Naval Strike and Air Warfare Center as an N3 operations officer. Bottom line, folks, Scott oversaw operations for the Top Gun program and all carrier operations in the Pacific Fleet. After 20 years of commissioned service to our nation, Scott retired and he moved home to the great state of Texas, which is his permanent home. It is my honor to welcome back Commander Scott Snow. Scott, welcome back to the Operation Freedom show and platform.
Well, thank you, Doctor. I appreciate being on with you. It's an honor and pleasure.
Scott, I want to start you told me about a month ago that I asked you if you had seen the new Top Gun movie. And I said, is it worth my time to see it, Scott, or is it just going to be a bunch of fabricated hooey? And he said, no, I think it's worth your time. Well, I ended up watching it the other night. And I thought it was actually excellent. So, Scott, when I watch medical programs, 99% of it is BS, right? So when you watch the Top Gun movie, and our listeners, if they haven't, will watch the Top Gun movie, what's your take as a guy who, as I mentioned, has 3,200 flight hours and 618 landings on aircraft carriers and 335 combat hours? What was your take?
Well, what I really liked about it is they actually put the actors in the airplane. So until they had the camera technology available to film it as if they were in the front seat, they had the camera array in the back seat. So when you see the G's getting pulled on these kids, and I call them kids because, well, I'm north of 50, so I can do that. But you see their cheeks pull down. You see they're actually under G and they're actually flying in the aircraft themselves. Behind the scenes, 4 of my very close friends were the advisors for the movie. And what was kind of building this to be a much better than the first go-round is that there's very little CGI and not so over-the-top Hollywoodism. The only one is, hey, flares are bright, shiny, and colorful, but chaff is what gets the job done for radar-guided missiles. But that I'll give them that, because cinematically it looks better to have the flares flying out of the airplane instead of chaff that they probably wouldn't be able to see. But all in all, I think they did a fantastic job and really brought the experience that we have in flying these high performance machines to the big screen.
Scott, in all your years and all your missions, combat missions, what was the scariest moment you had?
Every time you land on the carrier at night, it scares you more than, say, having 35 SA-2 missiles shot at you in the span of 20 minutes over Baghdad. You're busy doing barrel rolls around the missiles and dumping tons of chaff and everything else, and then after all of that, then you get to go tank one more time and then go home to land on the carrier. And you can ask any carrier pilot, if your knees are not shaking at the end of the night trap, you're doing it wrong. You've lost so many brain cells that it's over for you. But you're shaking like a leaf every single time when you land at night.
And when we did a video interview, I asked you, well, you taught so many of these current fighter pilots. When
Yes.
when you look at your students, if you will, what was the one common denominator of those that were the best pilots, the best fighter pilots, the best at landing on a carrier?
Humility.
Mm.
And for me, the biggest thing is that when people would walk into the room and their ego can't fit through the door, I can't teach them anything. And I'm sure you would have the same thing in the medical profession. If somebody comes in and it's ego first, it's like, what are they going to learn from you? They're going to ignore it because they know best. And the ability to impart knowledge has to come with your the reception from the student has to be that of humility, and that's how they get the best ones.
As I mentioned in your introduction, Scott, the fact that you're with us today, and you're not, as you described, if you get hit by a surface-to-air missile or air-to-air missile ordnance, pink mist, as you call it.
Yes.
Let's use your analytical abilities here. When you look at this election, that supposedly election day was Tuesday, but we're 5 days into it and still going, and supposedly it's going to go for weeks when they count votes in California for another couple, I don't know, maybe a month, who knows. What's your take?
Well, I would rather be playing rock, scissors, paper, hammer with Paul Pelosi than to go through another election like this. And I have to give credit to Mike Adams, the health ranger. He came up with that one. People are just, I don't know if they're just numb to a point that, well, they've always cheated. They cheated, but not enough back in 2016, but they cheated even harder in 2018 and 2020 and now 2022. And, we're going to have all the computers come in and count everything. And everyone's, it's just squeaking by, and they won by a nose. No, it's one of those when you look at it from a 35 or 50,000 foot view, you're like, absolutely no way in hell that it went down that way. It is one where the cheating, they cheat so blatantly that they're just daring you to call them out on it. And as they start losing their mouthpieces, thank God for Elon Musk buying Twitter, and that was one of their main mouthpieces that they had. But they're going to go right into censorship and cancel anybody out that if you don't believe our narrative, I'm going to do another red-lighted speech and tell you that half of America is terrible, and if you don't vote our way or like our policies, then I'm going to call you a terrorist and I'm going to put you in jail. It's third world dictatorship time. That's where it is.
So, Scott, you and I have had this discussion before. In the military and medicine are very similar. In a sense, there are administrators and there are operators. You and I, in our respective fields, are operators. In other words, we fix things. Right? We don't hang behind a desk and then go to lunch 4 times a day that the administrators do. So Scott, as an operator and as a guy who oversaw the Top Gun programs in the Pacific Fleet, the air platforms, which is an enormous job. Scott, when you look at this election process, being an operator, how do you fix it?
Voter ID. Yeah. And there's no mail-in ballots. Mail-in ballots is akin to giving me the printing press for money. It's like I don't care who writes the laws and who the politicians are. If I'm printing the money, I control everything. It's the same thing. If you're the one printing out the ballots, you don't need voters. You have ballots. You need to cram in as many as it takes. And this goes all the way back to JFK in 1960 in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And it happens to this day. When you have a sitting president in Biden, who in a speech, and this is how much they put it in your face. In his speech, he is praising Ruby Freeman. Who's Ruby Freeman? Well, she's the one on the security camera pulling a box of ballots out from underneath a desk and going over and running them through over and over again after they dismissed everybody because they had a, quote, water leak. But the counting still went on, much like it does to this day. They're going to count until they win.
Well, and, you know, I played this clip earlier in the show. I'm going to have Derek get it up for me now here. This clip. Joe Biden, before the 2020 election, was talking about the voter fraud operation that they had in place.
The most sophisticated and diverse voter fraud operation in place.
Yeah, I want your take on this. Derek, hit it.
We're in a situation where we have put together, and you guys did it for our administration, the President Obama's administration before this. We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
And I believe he was talking about mail-in voting, drop boxes, lack of voter ID, the fact that ballots are not the same as legitimate votes with the documentation, the chain of custody, with the electronic mumbo-jumbo that occurs. I think that's what he was talking about, Scott.
Well, it's much like if you're going to tell a secret to a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old, because that's the level that he's operating at. And no, but this is a secret. Don't say this. Okay, got it. Say it. And here it comes. You know, this nugget of truth just spilling straight out when he goes off script. And then here it is. This is exactly what they're doing. And it's exactly what they did back in the Obama years. And it's exactly what they've done time and time again. They perfected it to such a point that everybody's like, oh, well, no, it's the machines are fine. Oh, well, mail-in ballots, well, we needed that because, well, you know, COVID. And they have gone to such, if there's anything they're good at, like say you're a cook, you're good at cooking. If you're a demon rat, you're good at cheating. And they're going to cheat, lie, and steal all the way until they finally get held to account. And nobody has the spine and the backbone to hold them to account.
So, Scott, with this recent election that looks like it's going to be at least 50-50 in the Senate, unless there's some reversals, although there's 300,000 ballots, heavily Republican, sitting in Arizona that haven't been counted yet. But yet they gave to Mark Kelly, so I don't know. And of course, we have the whole Laxalt thing that there could well be a recount there based on, you know, the video cameras going down for 9 hours and Laxalt was in front before the cameras went out. Boxes showed up, and next thing you know, the cameras go out, and next thing you know, his opponent is winning. When we have the Herschel Walker thing coming up, election and runoff on December 6th, let's say the Senate stays Democrat because Harris casts the deciding vote. Let's say it's 50-50. And the House right now, but who knows, because the election's still going on in all these states. Right now it looks like the Republicans will get the House by several seats. What are the ramifications for the military with this being the case?
Well, it always comes down to follow the money. So it's the way I look at the House is like who has the checkbook for the household account. And so when it's like, oh, Republicans have the checkbook now. And so what are the Republicans going to do with it? Well, they're going to pay off their masters and their donors. And most of that comes and aligns with the military-industrial complex. So things do get better in the military under a Republican House, and it just as far as funding is concerned. Now, if that checkbook goes over to the Democrat side, well, the Democrats, of course, are going to pay all their donors, but they're going to do everything they can to take money away from the military and put it into their friends programs like green energy, like healthcare and vaccines and big pharma. And it ends up where they'll, much like Bill Clinton, and having to live through Bill Clinton, his years when I was in the military. Hey, I balanced the budget. Yeah, you balance the budget on the backs of the military. They cut us so hard to the bone after I came home from cruise in 1997, and we had 14 F-14s. You know how long, and we land, here's a big fly and everything else. And then all the airplanes get shipped off and broken down. You know how long it took us to just get 2 airplanes up and flying? 6 months.
Oh. 6 months for 2?
6 months to get 2 airplanes up. And it was 9 months before we got 4 airplanes up again. That's what life is like under the Democrat rule for the military, because they despise us to no end. Hillary forced any uniformed officer in or around the White House, forced them to wear business suits. She couldn't stand to see people in a uniform. And they're beneath me. They're my servants, and I don't want to see any of them in uniform. And you get into things like Benghazi. What difference does it make at this point? That's how much respect they have for the military. And when, at least with the Republicans, at least we get some respect and maybe a little bit of awe in how hard we work and how much we have to do and how much lift that we do for this country to keep us safe and, support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Republicans are on board with that. Democrats, they hate the Constitution. So why would they support anybody that is there to, support and defend it?
Which gets us into military readiness. Where are we on that scale, Scott?
We're about a 3, maybe on a good day.
Where were we under Trump? Where were we under Trump?
We were a 7 heading to 8. Because we were fully funded, and after digging out of the Obama hole, I had Marine fighter squadrons that they're going to the boneyard, the boneyard in Davis-Monthan in Arizona, pulling parts off of airplanes there to fix their fleet-ready airplanes.
No.
That's how bad we got, and then add on, well, we're going to be more of a social experiment by actually training and being ready and learning how to dogfight and drop bombs and project power abroad. You need to do some Navy knowledge online about wokeness and what preferred pronouns somebody wants to say and how to fill out a hurt feelings report if your hurt feelings are hurt, because that's what they're doing to us.
And then you add the jab mandates into this.
Absolutely. And to me, it's one where they're either going to purge by making it so distasteful to go into the military that, young red-blooded Americans, and mostly if you look at the heartland, I mean, this is where you get a big portion of your kids that'll go into the military. But now you're going to make it where, you got to have the wokeism and this and that. And, by the way, you got to get the jab. And a lot of people that are in are like, well, I don't want the jab. And it's like, here's a religious exemption. I'm against this. Like, no, you got to take it. Even though there is no such thing as the FDA-approved Comirnaty jab. It's one where it's still a emergency use only, which by law, they can't even force service members to take this, but they're doing it anyways because they'll just bend the rules until they get caught. So what it really has done is now you have this attrition inside the military of all the good guys and say, they lean conservative, so we got to get rid of them. So that's what they're doing. And then anybody who's coming in the door, it's like, well, it's so distasteful to go in. And by the way, it's like, well, I have to go in, and then you're going to give me the jab, and I have to go, right into wokeness training and everything else. Like, no, thanks. They don't want to do it. And that's why the Army's 20,000 short for this year. And they're just one where it's going to be this slippery slope where nobody wants to join up, let alone stay.